Hey y'all, happy Sunday and welcome to this week's live Q&A session. This is the portion of the show where we allow YouTube to send out notifications that we're going live. If you're watching this live Q&A on replay, please scrub ahead until this graphic disappears and the actual show begins. If you're watching live and you have any comments or questions, please go ahead and put them in the live chat. But for now, grab a beverage, sit back, and relax while the countdown timer does its thing. Then we'll get started. Happy Sunday, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. Oh, boy, it is a week. I'm here to tell you what. Been busier than heck out here in the shop getting Christmas presents made and what have you. For my kids and grandkids who might scroll through, you're not going to see anything. Nothing to see here. Return to your homes. Everything is in the house. Everything I have done so far is in the house. So there. Hey, you know, it's a long shot, but it does happen. Um, let's see here. When I do these Sunday live Q&As when I don't have a video, while I have the edited portion of the channel on hiatus over the holidays, I try to have a topic. And sometimes I have that topic picked out, uh, several days in advance, and I can do a little bit of research and make sure I've got my facts straight. While other times I wait until the last minute and I really have no idea what I'm going to talk about, and I kind of take a cue from the chat and see what you folks are interested in. Well, this time I've taken he didn't know he was suggesting it, but Brooks Martin this morning was talking about Laney Shaughnessy over at Spindle TV, and specifically talking about the class he did on making wooden Legos, wood or the material of your choice, and to include files in that video's description. Now, as such, I don't have a link to that in the description yet, but I will go find that video. It's Laney Shaughnessy does a live stream on Tuesday or Wednesday nights. It depends. Unfortunately, I'm not able to watch them live when they come out, and they're long live streams. I mean, he can go 3 and 4 hours. So just know that going in. But Laney is good people. He has a lot of excellent information. He knows what he's doing. I'm here to tell you. Brooks also said that he stressed the use of shortcuts, a great refresher. And it was that word refresher that got me thinking about, you know what, refreshers are almost always good. Uh, oh, my man, Steve, right on the time. I mean, he's on it. Steve Nealon at Harneal Media. You are the man, Steve. Thank you. There's a link to that video. I will put a link to it down in the description of this as soon as we're finished live here. But it was that suggestion about a refresher that made me kind of want to dovetail this in with kind of demonstrating things that, as I call it, I thought everybody knew, but maybe you don't. So a refresher is always good for no matter what your skill level is. But for folks who are still new to this, it can be even more valuable. And so I thought what I would do is something on doing an image search, just doing a standard Google image search, and how we can find images that are usable for us, both for a bitmap trace or for hopefully find vectors. Um, there are more and more vector files being uploaded online every day. Not everything is covered, but generally speaking, um, there are enough categories that we can generally find something related to what we're looking for. But I thought I'd focus on just the standard image search first, uh, just to kind of get folks used to thinking a little bit outside the box, maybe. So let's go ahead and I'll do a screen share here. And what I have is just a standard Google image search for a steam locomotive. Now, when you do a standard image search, this is what you're going to find. And for the most part, I mean, some of these may be usable for our purposes, some of them might not be usable for our purposes. But remember, we can always go over here on this toolbar and click on Tools, and that opens up another bar down here, down below. Well, right off the bat, we can filter by size, we can filter by color, we can filter by type, and this is the one that I want to get into right now. If we're looking just for clip art or line drawings, which is usually what we want to use, then this is a way to go. So if I just go into clip art, and that automatically searches for different types of files. Now, something like this, now that's obviously at Shutterstock. I'll go ahead and make it a little bit larger. That's obviously at Shutterstock. If you already have an account over at Shutterstock, that I can tell you right now is almost VCarve ready. It might need a little bit of cleaning up, but that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea on some of the things that you can search for within the clip art category. Let me go back up to the top here and we'll come down to line drawing and see what there is to offer. And that may be even better. I mean, some of these may be copywritten and some of them you may need uh, a license to use if you're talking about commercial use. And some of them may be just a photo to, like in this case, it's somebody on Etsy. Wow, that looks a little familiar, but they have gone to the trouble of offering it in SVG, PNG, EPS, and DXF format. So my point in all of this is when we do a image search, don't limit yourself to one specific type of an image. I mean, there are several different types of images here. Now, you can even get into the usage rights and, for instance, get into Creative Commons license, and that can help narrow down images that are fine for you to use in a personal use situation or possibly even a commercial situation. We can get in here, commercial and other licenses, and look at a lot of this. A lot of this is licensable. Some of it may be in the public domain. So expand your horizons a little bit and take a look at all avenues. Another thing, it's generally speaking better to filter by size. And I go for large and try to get the largest um, image that I can just because it makes the bitmap trace a lot more accurate. And no matter what size my project is going to be, I always import the bitmap, then do the bitmap trace in its original size. I do not scale the bitmap. I do the bitmap trace at its original size, then scale those vectors. Generally speaking, I get a much cleaner result that way. So my point in all of this is take advantage of these tools and use them to kind of help you figure out what types of images are appropriate for your use and just kind of expand your horizons and simplify things. So that was my point in that. Now, a lot of people already know this stuff. I assumed everybody knew how to use the tools in a image search. So, you know, mistake on my part. So, there's a little tip for you. Alrighty, let's see now. We'll go ahead and we'll get into some questions here. Brooks Martin wants to know, when running a 3D finishing toolpath across some raised text, the text background was raised, oh so slightly, 5 to 10 thousandths, although the toolpath preview does not show it. Any thoughts? Let's see. I would say number one, check combine mode, check base height. The text's background was raised. Do you mean like in the center of an O or a hollow area in an E or something like that? Or are you talking about like a shadow line around the letter? That may, let's see here. You did qualify that question. You said, okay, here you go. By the way, the text was imported as clip art. So the text was imported as clip art. I would say my first inclination would be to check combine modes and check its position within the model. The preview didn't show it. That might be something, no, because I'm assuming you used one tool for that 3D finishing toolpath. Now, if you used rest machining, as Michael Mazalik has explained, when you switch to a smaller bit for rest machining, it reads those pixels. All the bits read the pixels the same way. But if say an 1/8 of an inch bit, if it was an 1/8 of an inch bit and it can't get down deep enough in between these pixels, it'll just glance over them. But when you switch over to a 1/16 inch bit, it can get down into that finer resolution, which can cause a little bit of unevenness in the carve, like an outline or something like that. Okay. It was a rectangle around all the text, one tool only. Okay, is that part of the font? There are some fonts that do have an outline around them. Or was it a single rectangle around the text? Oh, wow. Wood technology? Thank you very, very much. I seriously appreciate it more than you will ever know. Thank you. Okay, Dwayne Withig says, I see the shadow on a finishing cut, raised letters as Brooks does. That's something I'm going to have to get into and see if I can. Okay, Michael Mazalik just popped in. If it's just in the preview, set the preview simulation to maximum. He said in his question, Michael, that it doesn't show in the preview, but I'm guessing it did show up in the actual carving. So Brooks says, my suspect is the base height single rectangle all the way around the text. And his preview is in max. Okay. Yeah, if it previewed fine, but that issue is happening in the actual carving itself, I would check that base height and check the combine mode. If you have it set to add, if there's any difference in there, then it shouldn't do that, though. It shouldn't do that. Is it sitting on top of another model? I mean, try the different combine modes. Try merge, and if that doesn't eliminate it, go back to add, obviously. I would check the combine modes and then look at a base height. Because if there's a rectangle all the way around your text, one single rectangle, something's going on there. Something is adding a base height under that text. Let's see here. Wood Technology wants to know, if you have a tool path on a line, what's the best way to get a certain thickness besides using the correct bit diameter? Okay, so you're trying to cut a line of a specific thickness. Instead of, let me go ahead and screen share here. Push the button, Mark. There we go. Okay. I'm using Aspire, but this works the same way in VCarve Desktop and VCarve Pro, and should work the same way in Cut 2D. Just do a couple of examples here, and I'll just draw this line. And hit spacebar to end that line. If, for instance, you need a 1/8 inch or 3 millimeter wide line here, yes, you can use the correct size bit. Or you could change this into a pocket. To do that, you'll need a closed vector. Instead of this line, what you'd want to do is draw a rectangle. And I'm going to just kind of guesstimate this here. Bonk, and we'll close that. And I didn't do this to any specific size. Go into move and transform mode, and I'm going to click the center point and turn it into that circle and drag my rotation point down to this corner. And we'll kind of give it an arbitrary angle here. Now you would make this rectangle whatever size it is that you are trying to get a specific width. If again, in my example, let's say it was 1/8 of an inch, you would draw that rectangle to be that size. So let me undo that last thing there, and I'll go ahead and resize this to make it that width. We'll unlink the XY, make my width 0.125, which is roughly 3 millimeters. Not exactly, but roughly. So now I have my rectangle is the correct width, and now I can just rotate it over to that right direction. That's one way. Then you would select, come over here and do a pocket to whatever depth you want it to cut to. I hope that's what you were talking about. Now, probably the easiest way to do what you're talking about is use a bit the correct diameter. Now, that's not always possible. I understand if you have an odd size width, then yes, you'll need to go this route. And if it's a complex shape, for instance, let's go ahead back over here and delete these two, and let's make a rather simple shape out here. Close, and let's say you wanted this to be an outline. You would select this, and you want that outline to be 1/8 of an inch. So you would select that, come over here and offset outwards or inwards. It depends on what you're doing. If you want it to extend 1/8 of an inch out, you'd offset outwards. If this is your outside perimeter, you would offset it inwards. Make sure you have create sharp offset corners checked here. Then do your width and offset inwards. So now you have those two vectors that you could pocket out in between. So I hope that's what you were asking. So, okay, thank you. I was going to do that, but was making sure there wasn't a hidden trick. Not that I'm aware of, you know. And as far as being hidden, I find that in my case anyway, most of the things that I thought were hidden were just hidden because I had my eyes closed. But you don't know what you don't know. What can I say? Okay, Brooks came back and said the combine mode was additive. Good call. Okay, well, if it works, it was a good call. If it doesn't work, sorry. But those would be the first things I would check anyway. Let's go over and see what's other questions we have here. WDR Woodworking says, hey, Mark, do you use a spiral O bit for cutting into epoxy? No. I've been doing small inlays lately, but have been using a standard downcut bit with no issues so far. I was told by Shane Peters and Rob Sandstrom to use an upcut bit instead of a downcut. And the reason for that excuse me. And the reason for that is the downcut's going to force those epoxy chips back down into the kerf of the carve, where an upcut will eject the chips and the heat out. An O flute really hasn't been necessary, but I find that upcut gives me a much, much cleaner carve, simply because there is less cut epoxy chips, or fewer cut epoxy chips down in the kerf of that cut. This is especially true if you're just cutting a single line. Now, sometimes it's not possible to get an upcut like V-bit, like the 15-degree V-bits I've been using. They are straight bits, so they just throw the chips wherever they want to. But for a clearance tool, which I think is what you're talking about, I've been using upcut bits, and it's helped out a lot. And that's just simply when it comes to cleanup. And if you've been doing epoxy carving, you know how much cleanup there is, and because there's a bit. I didn't show it in my videos, but you can see when I carve and then take it in the house and go to pour the epoxy, there's a lot of chips before I start pouring. So hopefully that answered that. Let's see. Ali Ahmed says, hi everyone from Birmingham, UK. Can I ask why when I import a DXF file to VCarve Pro, it does not show in the center? Instead, it goes all over the place. Okay. A very common question, believe it or not. I need to include this in a video. Let's go back over here. Okay, let me get rid of the star. When you do your job setup in VCarve, Aspire, Cut 2D, whatever, when you do your job setup, you set your XY datum position here. And you're all set, ready to go. Well, it depends on the XY datum position of the program that DXF file was created in. So, for example, let me go back and change this to the bottom left. Okay. Now, in the program the DXF was created in, let's say the person came out here and he drew the vectors like so. And it doesn't matter what size they are or their position. But you can see the distance between the origin, the XY datum position, and the corner of this vector. When you import a DXF file, that's part of the data that's included in that DXF, is how far away from the origin this corner of the vector is. So if you have your XY datum position set to the center and you import a DXF file that was created with the origin over here, this corner of the vector is going to be over in this direction, because let's say this is, you're in the UK, let's say this is 50 millimeters from here to here. The file information in that DXF says this corner needs to be 50 millimeters from the origin or XY datum position. So it's going to place it 50 millimeters up in this direction. It's a pain, but that's why it does that. Now, the way you can combat that, and this is a quick and easy way of doing this. I don't have any DXFs on this computer, or I would show you live. Is you when you import the DXF, no matter where the vectors actually import into the file, they will all be selected. At that moment, go ahead into Align Selected Objects and align them to the center of the material. So that's the first thing you should do is close this, go into Import Vectors, find that DXF file, select it, and the second it imports, all those vectors are selected. Go up here to Align Tools and align it to the center of the material. That way, no matter where those vectors import to, they will suddenly be aligned to the center of your material. Then you can resize, rescale, or adjust them from there. I need to, as I said, go in and show that in a video. I just haven't done it yet. So hopefully that answers your question. And thank you for checking out the channel. Let's see. Okay, Tim Belt has a very quick question, very easy. You've been using and upgrading Aspire since 10.5. When I upgrade, it looks like the older version of Aspire remains on the hard drive. Yes, it is a separate complete install. And that's why when you install that upgrade, it asks you if you want to migrate your tool database and all your settings to the new version. Now, if you don't see that, I'll show you in just a second where to go find it. Further asked, do I need to keep the older versions or can I delete them? You can delete them. Don't uninstall them, but make sure you migrate your settings and your tool database first. And let me show you where that's at right now. Go back over here into Aspire. And if you go up here to help, migrate from older version. When you click on that, it will search for an older version. Here's version 11.0, it says. Copy the machine and tool database. Copy my post processors, copy the options and settings, custom material textures you may have made, sculpting presets. That's in Aspire only, I believe. And then backup tool database online. That is a good thing to do. It is it's always a good idea to back up that tool database online. I'll give you, for instance, when I installed 11.5 out here, I did that 2 days after I had installed it on the computer in the house. I uploaded and backed up that tool database inside. So when I installed it here, I could download that database out here without having to put it on a flash drive and go hunt for folders and everything else. It migrated it all automatically. So as for whether you should uninstall it, that's entirely up to you. Just make sure you've migrated all of that information out of the old version into the new version, and make sure that new version works for you on your version of Windows with any plugins or any gadgets you may have added or what have you. Make sure it's working before you delete that older version. And in fact, what I tend to do is keep that older version on the computer for quite a while, just simply because if there is a problem with the new version, I can fall back on that older version. So I'm not completely dead in the water, if that makes sense. Here's another little tip for you. What I tend to do is for the tool database, my tool database is not very big. I mean, it's bigger than some, not as big as others. If you have ever downloaded the tool database from Amana Tools or Whiteside Tools, you know it is a huge file. In the case of Amana, it is just about every tool they make. Well, I don't know anybody who has every tool Amana makes. So do you need that entire database of everything they have available? Probably not. I cheat. I download that database and install it in an old version of the software that I no longer use. Then when I buy an Amana bit or a Whiteside bit or whatever, I go to that database, find that tool, and I export the tool file for that tool only. Then I import that into my new database. Now, I have a version of VCarve Pro on the computer in the house that I did that with. And when I click on that tool database, it can take up to a minute for that entire database to load. And Aspire or VCarve Pro will not respond while it's loading that database. It takes it that long, and it can clog up your database with a bunch of tools you will never use or don't even own. So there's a couple of reasons to keep an older version. Do you need to keep them? No, you don't have to. I would just make sure you have all your information migrated over to the new version and that the new version is working well for you before you uninstall the older versions. So I know that's more than you wanted to know. But, okay, let's see here. David Pingle wants to know, is there a way of seeing a thumbnail of an SVG file in a folder? There is. I'm writing myself a note here. Bob Hiltebridle, who I don't see in the chat today. If you're there, Bob, howdy. Speak up, son. He helped me out on this because I had this same problem. All I saw was the SVG file icon, and the same thing with STL files. There is some third-party software, just a little extension that you can download for Windows, and I can't remember the name of it. I will look for it and find a link and put it down in the description of this video. And what it does is it brings up a thumbnail of SVG files, STL files, and a couple of other file formats. I will find that link and put it in the description of this as soon as we're finished here live. But that is something that is built into Windows. And like I say, it's just a little update thing. So, let's see here. Doug Butterfield wants to know, I just got a 4030 Gen Matsui Desktop, and I'm wondering what I need for this machine. Thanks, Doug. Okay. Boom. That's the one. Microsoft Power Toys. That's the one. That's the third party. So let me MS Power Toys. Wood Technology. Thank you. I'm old. I can't remember what I had for dinner last night, so I don't remember programs names. But thank you for that. I will find a link to that and put it down in the description of this as soon as we're finished live. Thank you very much. Okay, so you are wondering, Doug, as far as programming, you're a newbie. When it comes to programming, what I think you're talking about is, well, designing software, and that is CAD CAM software is what you're looking for. CAD, computer aided design or computer aided drafting, whatever you want to call it, slash CAM, which is computer aided manufacturing or computer aided machining. Just depends on which discipline you come from. Those acronyms can mean different things. You'll need to be able to get your design into the computer. You'll need to be able to assign tool paths to that design, assign tools and tool paths to that design, then generate the code that your machine needs to be able to understand what to do. There are many, many, many options out there, some free, some with price tags that you would not believe, and because I don't believe them. Do your research. My first instinct is to go over to look for a support forum. I'm using my cursor like you can see it. Look for a support forum for this brand of CNC router. Just do a search for that brand and model with the word support and see if there are any message forums or support communities. It might be a Facebook group. It might be a message forum. It may be a sub forum on another message forum. And go in there, join, and find out what other people are using with that machine. All machines are different. Some will have things in common with others when it comes to controller software. Some of them are use a proprietary system that you have to use their software with their machine. And I don't know about this brand, and I would hate to lead you in the wrong direction. Some of these are free, some of them are not. So it's best to find out the needs of your machine. But do know that there are two different types of software at a minimum. And that is the software you're going to do the designing and create the tool paths with, and the software that's going to actually control the computer. Or excuse me, control the machine, not the computer. My mistake. That controller software needs that file written in a specific language, and that's what the CAD CAM software does. So I would look for a support forum for this machine and ask the people who own one, you know, because they have been there, done that, got the T-shirt. So, let's see. I hope that answers that. I'm trying not to cop out on you, but there are just so many different machines and software options out there. I'd hate to lead you in the wrong direction. I really would. Okay, Dan Brown wants to know, how do you set up and cut a slight amount off on the last pass? Okay, I have a video on that, but I will go ahead and give you a brief synopsis. Let's see here. Get back over and to Aspire. And basically what you want to do is do a separate last pass. And let's say I want to cut this rectangle out of this piece of material. And we'll go over here and I'll do a profile toolpath on the outside. And the bit is not relevant. I want to cut all the way through the material. So Z equals, and right down here is where you set this up. You want to click on do a separate last pass and then set your allowance here. Now, personally, I use 10 thousandths of an inch, so 0.01 of an inch. And what that'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll calculate the toolpath with just that and nothing else, no other changes. And if we come in here and zoom in on the toolpath, you'll see that, okay, here we go. And let's, come on, Mark, you can do this. All right. The red line in this toolpath is the rapid move. It's going to start at our origin. It's going to move over here to the corner of our toolpath. And we see we have this light blue line right here. But if we look closer, we also have this green line here. We look closer still, we can see these dark blue lines. They're a little bit different. It's this one here on the bottom is in a little bit different position. And that's that 10 thousandths of an inch. The bit's going to come over here and it's going to plunge down, make its first pass, second pass, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh pass. Then on the last pass, it's going to lift completely out of the material, move that 10 thousandths of an inch, plunge down the full depth of the material, and then make one last pass, cutting the entire thickness at one time. It's very effective. It works very well. But it's this area right here, do a separate last pass. That's where you set that. Okay. So I hope that answers that. And Wood Technology says, I just learned that by using Z plus 0 and not hitting the equals will keep the formula. And if you change the sheet thickness later, it's recalculated. Yes, sir. That's absolutely right. And what he's talking about is this. If we go over here into the profile toolpath and I set that to Z plus 0.0, and strictly speaking, you don't even need that 0 plus 0.0, and then you leave it at that. It will calculate it. Okay. Right now, my material is 3/4 of an inch thick. Now, if I go in, let's close this, and go into material setup, if I change this to 0.875, click OK, the material value has changed. Now I need to recalculate. Yes. Boom. Now it's recalculated my depth of cut. If I look up here, it's going to cut. If you look down in this bubble, the max depth is 0.875. So that's 100% correct. And in fact, if you create a template file, that's what I do. I put that in the template file for all of my for the tool paths that I'm setting up that are dependent on the thickness of the material. I will do that and save that in the template. That way, no matter what thickness of material I am using for that particular project, it does the same thing. So yes, good tip, by the way. Thank you. So doing that last pass is like a cleanup pass, removing the rough edges. Exactly. If you've ever had those little witness marks where you can see the various depths that bit has cut, each step downward, doing that separate last pass and add a smooth ramp. If you go back over here and turn that off, go into this toolpath. If you do a separate last pass, then add a smooth ramp over the appropriate distance. I usually go 1 inch. Calculate. Now it will completely eliminate those those witness marks all the way around. Russell Faraday brings up an excellent point. Make sure for that separate last pass that the flute length of your bit is enough. Make sure that the cutting depth of your bit will handle that. Because if you are doing this with a small diameter bit, trying to cut through 3/4 inch material and you only got a 1/2 inch of flute, you're in a world of hurt. It's not going to end. So, Peter Van Vliet wants to know, is there a way to change the color of the toolpath movements? No, that is built into the program. That's built into the program. Remember, red is rapid, dark blue is the cut, light blue is a plunge, green is a retract. Okay? But that's built into the program. Now, there may be a way to get in and tinker under the hood in the nuts and bolts, but I'm not aware of it. It's just, that's the key. So let's see here. I believe I still have. Okay, Scion Jones wants to know, do you still use masking tape, glue, and accelerator to fix your material prior to machining? I most certainly do. 3 brand new rolls, more CA glue, and more accelerator. Yes. I won't say I use that exclusively, but any situation where you would think about using double-sided tape, I use painter's tape and CA glue. With technology, I wish it stinks for us that are colorblind. Send a letter to Vectric Support. Send an email to Vectric Support, let them know you're colorblind, and ask them if there's a way to get in and do that. I mean, there may be that I'm just not aware of. But that's a very valid concern that I didn't even take into consideration. You're 100% right. Send them a look. They are very, very responsive to requests from their clients and customers. And in fact, that's where the ideas for updates come from you. So send them a letter. There may be a way. So, David Pingle says, I will be needing a new dust collector soon and was wondering if the Harbor Freight one you have is relatively quiet and would be a possible good choice. You know, I am very surprised and satisfied with this puppy. As far as being quiet is concerned, you'll hear it when it kicks on. And that's it when it's running. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but it's running right now. I was very surprised by it. I like it. It, it's a monster. I mean, of course, having only compared this to a shop vac, I don't really have a heck of a lot to compare it to. But brother, it works. Um, Noise levels, I still wear hearing protection when I'm using it. You know, I've got the over-the-ear headset. I've um, I've never had to put earplugs and then use the over-the-ear with it. It just becomes a droning noise in the background to me. But you know, I wouldn't hesitate to do it again if I had it to do all over again. I wouldn't hesitate. Now, having said that, I also have a a cyclone dust separator that it's running into. That's why it's mounted on the wall and not mounted on its little cart. I have it running. It's mounted on the wall sideways, and it's running down into that dust deputy into a container down below, and the bag and filter bag are just there to keep it from blowing junk all over the shop. So, and I don't know if you could hear that or not. I really don't know. So, let's see here. Dwayne Ruthig says his Delta tests at 70.1 dB when running, louder than the CNC. I can hear this over the CNC, but this air-cooled spindle is pretty quiet. But even when it's carving, like I say, it becomes just a droning noise in the background. So, and I will second that wood technology. 4-inch hose or larger. 4-inch hose or larger. I'm running. You know, it's kind of odd. They call this the Harbor Freight a 4-inch because the output hose or the intake hose is 4-inch with their little adapter on it, that little Y splitter that comes with it. But if you measure the diameter where you slip that splitter over it, that's 5-inch. I know this because I had to get 5-inch hose to connect up to the dust deputy, which thankfully was 5-inch inlet itself that had a 5-to-4 adapter. So, you know, I haven't done a separate video on the dust collection system. I'm going to wait until I get the lean-to built out back and get this moved outside. Then I'll do a separate video on the dust collector. But yeah, Rick French is right as well. There's lots of great ideas out there for upgrading the Harbor Freight dust unit with Cyclone and a better filter and a larger impeller that is a bit quieter than this one and improves suction. But right now, factory stock, that motor with the factory stock impeller and everything, if I'm not careful, it will suck up an end mill into that pipe and just be gone down into that cyclone. That thing is, it's powerful, believe me. You know. So, and it really moves a lot of material real quick. So, Michael Keymont says the dust deputy is a game changer. I still don't have any dust in the Harbor Freight bag after a month of use. Yeah, that dust deputy really comes in handy. I've got a little drum set down below it, little cardboard container that came with the dust deputy, and it's on a little cart. So all I got to do is unclip the ring and slide it out, pull out the bag, put a new bag in it, close it up. So, and I just use the white trash bags for like a office trash can. So, let's see. Dan Brown says, whenever I program offsets, I never seem to pick the right side. Help me to understand how VCarve tells whether your offset is inside or outside. Okay, let me scroll over here and let's turn off this toolpath here, close this, go back over to the 2D view. Now, I'll select that vector. We'll go over here to offsets. Two things to look at here, okay? It says outwards right or inwards left. Now, just to confuse matters, if you have a closed vector, outward is outward, inward is inward. But if you have, let's draw an open vector, and let's go here. And I select that open vector, go into offsets. If I have inwards checked here, notice how it says left. Now, also notice that there is a black spot here. This is showing you where the start point is. What do I mean by that? Let me go ahead and turn off your question here so we can all see. If I select the vector, then go into node editing mode, there's my green start point, okay? So the way this vector was drawn, it starts here and goes down this way. Imagine you are standing on this start point. Look at the arrow here. You're standing on this start point facing this direction. If I offset this right now, let's come out of node editing mode, go into offset. If I offset this, it's going to put the offset to the left. Imagine you're, again, standing on this and looking down at it this direction. It's going to place that offset to the left. Let's go ahead and offset it. That's where people get confused. If you look, it actually put that offset to the right because we're looking at it from above. We're not actually standing on that point looking this direction. So let's close this. Let's select that offset we just created and delete it. Now I'm going to select that vector, go into node editing mode, and I'm going to make this the start point. Then with only that modification, I'll come in offset, same thing, offset. Now it's to the left. It's based on that start point, wherever that start point is on an open vector. Okay, that's what trips everybody up. Imagine you're standing on that start point and looking at the end point. It's going to place it to the left or right as if you were standing there looking this way. Okay? I hope that didn't just confuse everybody. Does that make sense? It doesn't make any sense to me, but so let's see. Hopefully that helps, Dan. It's kind of confusing, but it's also logical when you think about it. You have to know who's left, what left, from where, from what perspective. So, okay, Scion Jones has another question, and this will be the last one here because we're running over time now. Do you have advice for feed and speed rate for an extra long 3mm end mill? All I've read is conflicting, and I've already snapped a tool trying to do a 25mm deep detailed cut on soft wood. No, I do not have any advice for a feed and speed rate, and I'm here to tell you that there is no magic answer, especially something that long and that small a diameter. Okay. You're going to have to experiment. If you're breaking the bit, one of two things is happening. Either your spindle RPM is too slow or your feed rate is too fast. I tend to fall on the side of your feed rate is too fast. What I always do, and what I tell everybody to do, what I counsel everybody to do is start with a very conservative number. You can always increase the feed rate if everything is going well. But once that tool snaps, the ability to decrease or increase the feed rate is irrelevant. Slow down the feed rate. You're pushing it too fast. If you're breaking tools, almost always that's the problem. Unless you hit something, if you hit a screw or a clamp or something like that, you know, um, but almost always your feed rate is too fast. So, yeah, I've got some agreement here. And absolutely, there's no magic number because it varies by the material too. The speeds and feeds you're using right now may work perfect in foam or acrylic, but in softwood or hardwood, no. And it might work great in poplar, but rotten in maple. So even you can't even really say softwood or hardwood. Now, and I'm going to get pedantic here, and I apologize for this, and this is not a lecture, but there is one thing to remember, and that is softwoods are not necessarily softer than hardwoods. If you want to get really, really out down into the weeds here, a softwood is an evergreen tree that doesn't lose its leaves in the winter. A hardwood is a deciduous tree that drops its leaves. That's the difference. Softwoods are usually pine, fir, spruce, hemlock, things of that nature. If you have ever cut a lot of pine, you know that the annular rings in that pine are some of the hardest things you'll ever cut. And I'm willing to bet you that's the problem that you ran into. So just slow down the feed rate and, you know, take it easy. You can always speed it up, but once the tool breaks, you can't slow it down. So be conservative, not to the point of paranoia, but, Bill Smith wants to know, do I have a video on the chamfer tool? No, not yet, but I plan on one in the new year. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. For those of you in the U.S., this is Thanksgiving week. In fact, it is. Day after, no, it is, well, it's still 4 days away, so you've got plenty of time. I don't know what I'm thinking. Today's Tuesday. Man. Um, uh, it, have a happy Thanksgiving is what I was trying to say. And hopefully you can share that with a loved one. And if you can't, think about reaching out to someone who does care. It's a time for families to get together, and it's a time for people to stop and reflect on what we have. And regardless of what country you live in, and whether you celebrate Thanksgiving or not, we all have so much to be grateful for, and we all have so much to be thankful for. And sometimes we lose sight of that. So stop, take a little bit of a breather, and just look around you at the people, the things, the situation. And a happy Thanksgiving to you. Happy Thanksgiving to yours. And I got to tell you, I am thankful and grateful for each and every one of you. You guys have blessed me so much. It's indescribable. Without getting maudlin here, I started doing this because I noticed people kept having the same questions over and over again as new people got into the hobby. And I'll be honest, I did this to save me some work because it's easier to link somebody to a video than it is to type out the same explanation in text 3 or 4 times a day. And you folks are the reason I'm here. And without you, there'd be no point. So thank you to each and every one of you. I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. You've made everything here possible. And thank you sincerely. Okay. Next week, I'm not sure what we're going to do, but I'll figure something out. I'll probably share with you something I'm going to share with my members tomorrow evening. Channel members, 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern, members only live stream. If you would like information on how to become a member, just click that little join button down there next to the subscribe button. A frame will pop open and a video will play, tell you all about channel membership. And I hope to see you there. If I don't see you there, I'll see you next week. Have a great week. Stop and smell the roses. And until then, go do something cool. Go do something cool for somebody else. And have a great week. Thank you, y'all.